Someone with real authority made the decision to speak out against the WNBA's absurd double standards. Let's examine what happened here because this story has more layers than a wedding cake and twice as much drama. Brittney Griner has been sitting pretty, thinking her controversial remarks would just blow over like they always do in this league that protects certain players at all costs. But Indiana Governor Braun just threw a huge wrench into that plan, and the fallout is going to be absolutely spectacular.
She accused the Indiana Fever fan base of being racist. They investigated it. They said those accusations were false. The least that she could do is apologize to our great state and the fans that show up at these games and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Obviously, she's not going to do that. But also, Dan, why isn't the Indiana Fever apologizing to their own fan base for putting them through that, for going through those types of accusations? I mean, those are awful accusations. They weren't true. The fans weren't shouting racial slurs toward Angel Reese or opposing players. I mean, where is Caitlin Clark? Where is the Indiana Fever? Where is the WNBA saying that investigation there shouldn't have been an investigation? The allegations were false. Where's the apology? It hasn't happened. It's disappointing. As someone who is, my daughters are fans of the team. They've gone to games to see Caitlin Clark. It's so demeaning to our state and to the fan base to go through something like that. The least they can.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The WNBA rushed to investigate phantom racism against Ree while completely ignoring a viral video of Brittney Griner that has millions of people convinced she called Caitlin Clark trash and a foxing white girl. The WNBA spent time and resources looking into completely fabricated claims about Fever fans making hateful comments about Ree after the sky was destroyed by 30 points. These claims were so obviously false that even the league had to admit they were unsubstantiated.
Everyone deserves the right to play. Everyone deserves the right to come here, sit in these seats, and feel safe and not feel like there's a threat or they can't be who they are. Definitely will be speaking up against that legislation and those laws that are trying to be passed, for sure.
The WNBA will look into invisible hate speech that doesn't exist, but when there is actual video evidence of potentially problematic behavior from one of their protected players, they suddenly develop selective hearing and vision problems. It's as if they have a special superpower that only enables them to see discrimination when it fits their preferred narrative. The hypocrisy is so obvious that it is truly painful to watch. Governor Braun saw through this bullshit and pointed it out in the most tactful manner possible when he stated, "I think it would be good to put that to rest as well if there was some look into what Angel Reese did." Not only did he make a recommendation, but he also made the WNBA aware that those who truly matter are taking notice of their bias.
Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever are the best gift that the WNBA has ever had. I mean, and the fans that show up and pack that place, I mean, sell out crowds every time Caitlin Clark plays. It's so great for Indiana, but it's good for the WNBA. But how dare you accuse our fans, the Hoosiers that show up at these games, being racist when they're not? I mean, that was an opposing player who hates Caitlin Clark. Frankly, it's a great rivalry for the teams and for the sport. But don't accuse our fans of being racist. I mean, that's the kind of garbage that gets thrown around all the time. It wasn't true. The investigation proved it. And there was no outcome of it. There was no apology. Apologize to the fans. I mean, that's a simple thing to do. And I wish the team would have been more emphatic about that. Stand up, stick up for your fan base. I mean, that's who's keeping you alive. So maybe they'll still do that. I don't know. I mean, I tweeted that Angel Reese should apologize, and my tweet got a lot of reactions, but I'm not going to hold my.
The governor made it very clear that he has no tolerance for bigotry or bullying, and he believes that when remarks are made that don't make sense or that are out of line, they should be acknowledged. However, it appears that the WNBA only acknowledges offensive remarks when they can be used to defend certain players while disparaging others. Now, let's talk about the now famous Brittney Griner video, which has everyone talking. The video shows Griner appearing to make remarks that millions of viewers took as trash and used a racial slur. Griner's defenders assert that she was actually calling the referee's decision trash and calling it a fing-whack call, But the question is, if the remarks were so obviously about the referee, why hasn't Griner herself come forward to clarify? When there is phony outrage over fictitious remarks made about Angel Ree, the league launches a thorough investigation more quickly than you can say victim complex. But when there is legitimate concern about actual comments captured on camera, they abruptly become too busy to address it. The silence is deafening and speaks volumes about how this league functions. This entire scenario exemplifies the WNBA's protected class system, where some players are exempt from criticism but others are examined for breathing incorrectly. Every facial expression, every mistake, and every perceived disrespect directed at her opponents are all reasons why Caitlin Clark receives criticism. Meanwhile, Brittney Griner can allegedly make inflammatory comments on camera, and the league pretends it never happened. The timing of this controversy couldn't be more perfect either. This happened right after the Fever absolutely destroyed the Sky in a game where Caitlin Clark wasn't even playing. The Sky got so thoroughly embarrassed that they needed something to distract from their complete organizational failure, so suddenly mysterious. Hateful comments from Fever fans appeared out of nowhere, conveniently giving the league something to investigate that would make Reese look like a victim instead of a player who got outplayed by a team missing their superstar. But Governor Braun isn't playing these games. He understands what Caitlin Clark means to Indiana and what she's done for basketball in his state. He knows that Clark sells out the Gainbridge Arena just like the Pacers do, and has rekindled a lot of that spirit at both the college and high school levels. This isn't just about basketball. This is about protecting an athlete who has brought unprecedented attention and economic impact to Indiana. The governor's remarks expressing hope that the animosity toward Clark will stop while advocating for equal treatment highlight the true nature of the situation. The WNBA has permitted a toxic culture to emerge in which criticizing Caitlin Clark is not only acceptable but encouraged, while standing up for her or her supporters earns you the reputation of a problematic senator. Governor Braun is essentially endorsing Jim Banks' demand that the WNBA provide an apology to Fever supporters for their phony inquiry, while expecting equal treatment for valid issues. The involvement of government officials should serve as a stark reminder to the WNBA that when your bias becomes so blatant that politicians feel compelled to intervene, you've crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. This isn't about politics. It's about basic fairness and equal treatment under the league's own policies. These aren't just any politicians seeking attention. These are elected officials from Indiana who understand the economic and cultural impact of what's happening. Brittney Griner's response to all of this must be extremely valuable. She is accustomed to the WNBA shielding her from any real repercussions for her behavior and to being regarded as untouchable due to her background and position in the league's social hierarchy. But now she may be subject to real scrutiny from those who are indifferent to the WNBA's internal politics and power dynamics. The media questions whether Clark deserved to be fouled hard. The league ignores any potentially derogatory remarks made about her, but when false allegations are made about her fans, the WNBA abruptly changes into CSI basketball. The difference between how this situation is being handled and how any controversy involving Clark is handled is so glaring that it's almost comical. Governor Braun's requested probe might lead to a lot of problems for the WNBA, since many unpleasant facts will surface if you begin looking at the material and applying equal standards. The league has been functioning under a system that protects some players while persecuting others, and that system is set to come under significant external pressure. The particular remarks aren't even the most harmful aspect of this entire dispute. Griner may or may not have made it clear how skewed and corrupt the WNBA's investigation process is. They will look into false allegations made by fans, but disregard genuine worries about players, rushing to defend some athletes while letting others be attacked without consequence. Additionally, the WNBA has been making a valiant effort to suppress something that Governor Braun's involvement brings to light. When government officials begin to defend Caitlin Clark and expose the league's bias, she brings attention, money, and credibility that the WNBA has never had before. The timing of all of this couldn't be worse for Brittney Griner, who has already had to deal with a number of controversies and criticisms and now faces the possibility of actual accountability for her actions. It demonstrates that Clark's influence goes far beyond basketball. The cozy bubble of protection she has enjoyed may finally burst, which must be terrifying for someone accustomed to receiving preferential treatment. Even more intriguing is the fact that Griner is unable to play the victim card as she typically does in this situation because it concerns potentially offensive remarks she made about another player rather than her personal issues or background. She is unable to blame her detractors or accuse them of persecution when there is video proof of her remarks. The WNBA is currently in a precarious situation where they can either investigate the Griner situation and acknowledge that their prior inaction was biased and inappropriate, or they can continue to ignore it and face mounting political pressure. Either option would make them look awful, which is exactly what they deserve for starting this mess in the first place. The ridiculousness of this situation is well captured by Governor Braun's remarks about appreciating what Caitlin Clark has done for the league rather than making disparaging remarks that would suggest differently. More money and attention have been generated for the WNBA by Clark than by any other player in history, but some players and even league officials appear intent on undermining her achievements. The fact that political figures are now becoming involved indicates that this controversy has transcended basketball and is now having real-world repercussions. The WNBA cannot ignore this or wait for it to go away, as they typically do when senators and governors begin to make statements, because that's when you know things have gotten out of hand. The WNBA's social justice posture is completely hypocritical, as evidenced by this entire issue. They love to preach about equality and fairness, but their actions demonstrate that they only care about such ideals when they can be exploited to the advantage of specific players. The investigation that Governor Braun is requesting could reveal years of biased decision-making and preferential treatment within the WNBA. Once you start reading this thread, you never know how much corruption and favoritism might come to light. True equality would entail looking into all claims with the same urgency and holding everyone to the same standards. The league may not even be aware of how blatantly biased they have become because they have been playing favorites for so long. Brittney Griner's shock at facing potential consequences is probably genuine because she's never had to deal with real accountability before. The WNBA has protected her through every controversy and criticism, so the idea of actually being investigated for her actions must be completely foreign to her. The governor's engagement also sends a clear message to other politicians and authorities that this issue matters to their constituents. Caitlin Clark has fans around the country, and those fans vote when elected officials start protecting her and calling out league bias. Other politicians are going to take attention. When your investigation process is so blatantly biased that government officials feel compelled to call you out, you've lost any pretense of fairness or legitimacy. The WNBA has sacrificed its integrity on the altar of protecting certain players, and now they're paying the price. This controversy exemplifies why the league struggles with credibility and respect. Watching the WNBA's meticulously crafted narrative unravel in real time is the most satisfying aspect of this entire situation. They have invested so much effort in minimizing Caitlin Clark's impact while supporting other players that they have built an obviously unsustainable system, which is now being revealed for what it is: a bias protection racket for favored players. The WNBA's house of cards is finally falling apart, and Brittney Griner is going to discover what true accountability looks like. Governor Braun's remarks regarding Indiana being the basketball state and Clark being in the right state demonstrate that this controversy has regional and economic ramifications that go well beyond the WNBA. When you attack the player who is bringing an entire state unprecedented attention and revenue, don't be surprised when that state's leadership fights back. Governor Braun's desire for equal treatment for all players has completely altered the game. Please share your predictions below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more breaking WNBA drama. What do you think will happen when this inquiry begins?